Well, greetings and salutations, everyone. I hope everyone is doing well. Have I got a bonus for you? It has scientific evidence that Dogman has been around for a long time, with some very interesting photo evidence and some experiences. Before we jump into it, a couple links. As many of you know, I rely on Patreon, PayPal, channel membership, and the merch to help the channel to continue to grow and go. Links to Patreon, PayPal, and channel membership is in the description below. Merch displayed directly under the video. Also, Dogman Frightening Encounters, Volume 1 through 3, the audiobook versions. They were written and researched by Tom Lyons, narrated and produced by me, Jeff Nadolny. Those audiobooks are available on Audible, Amazon, and iTunes, links to which are also in the description as well. And finally, last but definitely not least, if you'd really like to help support the channel to continue to grow and go, simply subscribe. It does not cost a cent. Click the like button. It takes half a second. If you don't want to miss out on any of the informative uploads I put out daily, click that bell icon, and folks, please leave a comment. Why? Well, because all these things really do help the channel to continue to grow and go. And yes, folks, they definitely do matter. Now, everyone, I have taken far too much of your time. Let's jump into today's bonus, shall we?
Today's first encounter. Many people ask themselves if creatures of myth and legend exist. Are they real? Many of us would say, of course not. Well, let me be the first to tell you that things do go bump in the night. My entire life I've had encounters with things thought not to be real, and before you think I'm crazy, I don't take any medication of any kind and have 20/20 vision. This encounter takes place 3 years ago in July. As I've said, I've always had an interest in the paranormal, but most of all, the creature is known as werewolf or dogman to some. I live an hour out from Elkhorn, and I made and still make monthly trips to Bray Road. I would normally go with my girlfriend at the time, and this night was no different. We had already gone 3 or 4 times prior and had seen nothing every time, so this was our last-ditch effort. We would see the fabled Dogman, or accept the creature's non-existence. Initially, upon first arrival, it was the same as any other night. We drove through the road, examined anything suspicious, and go figure, found nothing. That was enough for me. I spent a good 10 minutes thinking to myself about how stupid it was to think werewolves or dogmans exist. It was that moment that would change my life forever. As I was staring across the cornfields in the moonlight, I saw a figure rise and break through the surface. It had the face of a wolf and the body of a man. Even after all of these years, I still remember so vividly what it looked like. Muscular, but also scrawny at the same time, as if it spent most of its time on the move. Its most prominent feature, however, was its eyes, yellow and cold. I could only say one thing seeing this. What is that? Once I said that in a loud tone, I not only caught my girlfriend's attention, but also the attention of the freak of nature, not even a yard away from me. My girlfriend screamed in horror and slammed on the gas. The creature, just as soon as it appeared, vanished, but it was not gone. As we were making our escape, I could see through the forest yellow eyes keeping pace with the vehicle. Just as we thought we were doomed, we reached town. As I stared behind us, all I could see were yellow eyes looking at me. That was the first of many encounters with the Dogman. Although it is called the Dogman, more than one prowls in the vast Wisconsin wilderness. Curiosity is a great thing. You should wonder if these things are real. By all means, find out for yourself. But be careful while searching for the truth. Don't get out of your vehicle when you go to Bray Road at night. One of the residents will appreciate you staying out of the crops, and 2, because wolves will always hunt in packs. Today's second encounter. This happened a few years ago. At the time, we lived in a small mountain town in New York. Spring, summer, fall were full of tourists because of our large lake. In winter, it was a ghost town, especially in bad weather. We lived in an old farmhouse at the base of a mountain, so our back porch had a decent view of said mountain and the surrounding woods. In winter, it gets creepy and quiet. One night I was walking home from the gym. It was snowing and bitter cold. Now, getting across town wasn't hard, even in the snow. Main Street was a mile long, if that, so our house was thankfully close to the main road. My friends were walking with me for half of the journey until they split off to go on their own way home. I was taking my usual shortcut past the ball field when I saw movement coming from the upper field. I didn't think much of it. Yeah, we had bear and coyotes, but they tend to shy away from humans. I honestly was more worried about drunk teens starting trouble. Stupidly, I stopped to see if I could make out what was in the upper field. At first, it looked like a weird bear hunched over. Then it stood up. It was big, way bigger than our black bears that we have up here, and by this point, they would be hibernating. Then I noticed it had long ears on the top of its head. I swear at that point my heart stopped. My legs felt stuck. I watched as it sniffed the air, its massive head turning in my direction. If I didn't start moving, I just knew this would be my last night alive. Somehow my feet remembered how to work, and I slowly made my way home. I made sure to keep half an eye on the creature as I walked. After a few feet, though, I lost sight of it. Now, I know you should never run from a predator, but my brain was screaming to get away. I raced as fast as I could down the street until I saw my house. As I rounded our fence, I saw it. There was a street lamp near the road that went up the mountain and around the lake. It had dark, matted fur, huge yellow glowing eyes, and huge teeth. Now, I've been a Halloween fan since I was a kid. I love monster movies. This creature was very similar to a werewolf. It snarled at me. My blood froze. I've never been so scared in my entire life. Before it could take another step, I jumped our fence, bolted up the stairs, and ran into the house like the hounds of hell were chasing me, because it felt like they actually were. As soon as I got in, I locked the door, then shut and locked all the other doors and windows. My mom asked me what was wrong. I told her there was a bear. I knew she'd never believe me if I told her the truth. I didn't sleep that entire night. When morning came, I had let our dogs out to use the restroom. That's when I saw them. Very large paw prints in the snow around our house. They traveled from the fence up through our porch, around the wraparound porch, down into the yard. The dogs didn't even want to go outside for very long, which I was thankful for. To think that thing was that close. What if it had gotten in? After all, I never saw the creature again. If you plan on walking mountain roads at night in the winter, don't. You never know what's actually out there. Today's third part of the upload is a little bit of scientific evidence and theory that I stumbled upon and was kind of shocked. Some scientists in Africa just recently re-excavated some footprints that at first they thought were bear. And then they realized that it was not a bear, that it was some sort of hominin. And through all of the reading that I've been doing in regards to evolution and a comparative gene that we may share with a Dogman, with a Sasquatch, Neanderthal, these footprints may be the oldest footprint of a Dogman that we have and are able to, study. I'm going to share the article with you guys, but the picture of the footprints are in right now. You're looking at them, and they don't look like human. They don't look like chimpanzee, and they don't look like bear. But they are a bipedal hominin with a plantigrade step. So check this out. Dartmouth College, the oldest unequivocal evidence of upright walking in the human lineage are footprints discovered at Latoli, Tanzania in 1978 by paleontologist Mary Leakey and her team. The bipedal trackways date to 3.7 million years ago. Another set of mysterious footprints were partially excavated at a nearby Site A in 1976, but dismissed as possibly being made by a bear. A recent re-excavation of Site A footprints at Latoli and a detailed comparative analysis reveal that the footprints were made by early human, a bipedal hominin, according to a new study reported in Nature. Given the increasing evidence of locomotor and species diversity in the hominin fossil record over the past 30 years, these unusual prints deserved another look, says lead author Ellison McNutt, an assistant professor of instruction at the Heritage College of Osteopathic Medicine at The Ohio University. She started the work as a graduate student in ecology, evolution, environment, and society at Dartmouth College, where she focused on the biomechanics of walking in early humans and utilized comparative anatomy, including that of bears, to understand how the heel bone contacts the ground, a foot position called plantigrade. McNutt was fascinated by the bipedal upright walking footprints at Latoli, Site A. Latoli is famous for its impressive trackway of hominin footprints at sites G and S, which are generally accepted as Australopithecus afernus, a species of famous partial skeleton, Lucy. But because the footprints at Site A were so different, some researchers thought they were made by a young bear walking upright on its hind legs. To determine the maker of the Site A footprints, in June of 2019, an international research team led by co-author Charles Muziba, an associate professor of anthropology at the University of Colorado, Denver, went to Latoli, where they re-excavated and fully cleaned the 5 consecutive footprints. They identified evidence that the fossil footprints were made by a hominin, including a large impression for the heel and big toe. The footprints were measured, photographed, and 3D scanned. The researchers compared the Latoli Site A tracks to the footprints of black bear, Ursus americanus, chimpanzees Pan troglodytes, and human Homo sapiens. They teamed up with co-authors Ben and Phoebe Kilham, who run the Kilham Bear Center, a rescue and rehabilitation center for black bear in Lyme, New Hampshire. They identified 4 semi-wild juvenile black bears at the center with feet similar in size to that of the Site A footprints. Each bear was lured with maple syrup or applesauce to stand up and walk on their 2 hind legs across a trackway filled with mud to capture their footprints. Over 50 hours of video on wild black bear was also obtained. The bears walked on 2 feet less than 1% of the total observation time, making it unlikely that a bear made the footprints at Latoli, especially given that no footprints were found of this individual walking on 4 legs. As bears walk, they take very wide steps, wobbling back and forth, says senior author Jeremy De Silva, an associate professor of anthropology at Dartmouth. They are unable to walk with a similar gait to that in Site A footprint, as their hip musculature and knee shape does not permit that kind of motion and balance. Bear heels taper and their toes and feet are fan-like, while early humans were squared off and have a prominent big toe, according to researchers. Curiously, though, Site A footprints record a hominin crossing one leg over the other as it walked, a gait called cross-stepping. Although humans don't typically cross-step, this motion can occur when one is trying to re-establish their balance, says McNutt. The Site A footprints may have been the result of a hominin walking across an area that was unlevel. Based on the footprints collected from semi-wild chimpanzees at Nagamba Island Chimpanzee Sanctuary in Uganda, and 2 captive juveniles at Stony Brook University, the team found that chimpanzees have relatively narrow heels compared to their forefoot, a trait shared in common with bears. But the Latoli footprints, including those at Site A, have wide heels relative to their forefoot. The Site A footprints also contained the impressions of a large helix, or big toe, and smaller second digit. The size difference between the 2 digits was similar to humans and chimpanzees, but not black bear. These details further demonstrate that the footprints were likely made by a hominin moving on 2 legs. But in comparing the Latoli footprints at Site A and the infrared foot proportions, morphology, and likely gait, the results reveal that Site A footprints are distinct from those of the Australopithecus aferinus at Sites G and S. Through this research, we now have conclusive evidence from the Site A footprints that there were different hominin species walking bipedally on this landscape, but in 2 different ways, on different feet, says De Silva, who focuses on the origin and evolution of human walking. We've had this evidence since the 70s. It just took the rediscovery of those wonderful footprints and a more detailed analysis to get us here. Couple things really quick. We're talking about very intelligent people who have went to school for years. And these people didn't realize that a bear cannot walk on its hind legs for a long period of time? For real? These are scientists. These are like top of the top, cream of the crop. And they didn't realize that. I mean, never mind what I mean, but I just think that's kind of baffling. And like I said, I am not saying that these are Dogman prints. I'm just saying, for me, in everything that I've read with the book Them and Us, the Neanderthal human connection there, I really, really believe that these prints are of Dogman. And for some reason, I can't shake the theory. It's stuck, and it's kind of etched in stone for me. But like I said, here are the pictures of the footprints, and you be the judge. Today's 4th part of the upload. My fiancée Elena and I have always been into the occult and the paranormal. We're the kind of people who used to fantasize about getting to see a cryptid or exploring a famous haunted location just for the thrill of it. I have to be careful about being around too much dark energy that some haunted locations have, though, since I am an empath. For those of you not familiar with the term empath, it's defined as a person with the paranormal ability to apprehend the mental or emotional state of another individual. Since childhood, I've learned to manifest my ability, and by now I can absorb emotions from the physical and metaphysical realms. It's a blessing and a curse. Last Tuesday, Elena and I were in the car on our way home from work when our favorite DJ came on the radio. Good evening, this is Redacted on Redacted, and we have a treat for the first person who can call and name this song from the following snippet. This is your chance to win one of our road trip revelry packages. After a brief pause, the music started playing. We listened intently. I see trees of green, red roses too. I see them bloom for me and you, and think to myself, what a wonderful. As it stopped, the radio host came back on. Now, let's see which lucky caller will win the road trip reward. Alana's mom is a huge fan of older music, so we already knew who it was and what song it was. My fiance immediately dialed the number, not expecting to be the right caller, but she was. I grinned as she correctly blurted out the right answer, silently high-fiving her. Louis Armstrong, what a wonderful world. The radio host paused dramatically, then made a drum roll sound with his hands. Ladies and gentlemen, we have a winner. You know what this means. You and two friends have won an all-exclusive road trip to wonderful New Orleans. And you guys will be getting to Louisiana just in time for some beads. My fiance got off the phone grinning ear to ear. Let's go pick up the tickets. Though I know neither one of us were really interested in Mardi Gras, I nodded, thinking about who else we should bring with us. Oh, we should bring Coy. He's right along the way. And who said we have to go to Mardi Gras? I'd rather go to Manchac Swamp, the home of the Rougarou. I think the locals call it the Cajun werewolf. After getting the tickets and food and gas vouchers, we packed our bags. I made sure to bring a bunch of extra socks, since I've always hated having wet socks on. And then we called the office to put in our time off. 2 weeks later, we were set on our road trip, northeast Pennsylvania to Bayou Country, Louisiana. I couldn't remember being more excited for a vacation. The whole ride south, Elena and I discussed our plans for the trip. Neither of us had ever been to Louisiana, or thought we'd ever would. So, we had never looked up what things were in the area to do. Upon searching Google rigorously, we found and made plans for our week in Louisiana, and it couldn't have been more perfect unless we went in October rather than July. Okay, we would just relax in a hotel, but we weren't staying in just any hotel. The one the radio prize included was a stay at the Dauphin Orleans Hotel, which is located in the French Quarter. This hotel is rumored to be one of the most haunted hotels in Louisiana, and it complemented the theme of our trip perfectly. Tuesday, we would explore the French Quarter and see if we could spot any infamous vampire twins of Louisiana. On Wednesday, we would explore the outskirts of the city and try to find old houses that had been abandoned, as well as visiting some famous voodoo shops. Thursday, we would explore the supposedly haunted St. Vincent's Asylum, which was located in the French Quarter. And then for the weekend, we would go to the Manchac Swamp and camp. We would search for the Rougarou and for the voodoo princess Julie White's cabin that is said to be hidden deep in the Manchac Swamp. As the hours passed, Elena and I would switch off driving through each state, stopping for leg breaks. Finally, 14 hours into the trip, we reached our pit stop for the night. We parked in my best friend Condre, who we call Coy's driveway in Birmingham, Alabama, and it felt great to be out of the car. It was actually our first time meeting him in person, so it was an emotional moment for all of us. He was overjoyed to see his big bro and big sis, and since he was a fairly large man, he squeezed us into a pillow-like frame with gusto. After telling him about our plan for the week, he was eager to pack some camping gear and to read up about the local lore. His tone was zealous, and he quickly gathered what he needed. I want to see the giant wolf man of Manchac Swamp. That was the last thing he said before we all went to sleep. And after 14 hours of straight driving, my fiance and I were so exhausted that even the hardwood floor at Coy's bedroom felt like memory foam mattress. The next morning we got up around 8:30 and set off on the last 4 hours of the drive. We were so excited to finally be in the voodoo capital of the United States, and right around mid-afternoon we reached New Orleans. The minute I stepped into the hotel, the energy hit me like a freight train. It made me physically sick for an hour. and after checking into our room number 113, we decided to relax and take a nap. We wanted to spend the night with our EVP and heat cameras, trying to find any spirits that were here, and to see if they were as bad as they seemed. None of us could sleep well, though. I'm not sure if it was because of our excitement or if something more paranormal was keeping us awake. We ate dinner out and checked out some local attractions, and when the clock hit midnight, we got our equipment unpacked. The EVP meter immediately started going off, worse than any other place I had been to. Elena and KO nearly crapped their pants at the sight of how much energy was in our room, and it definitely explained the feeling I had when I first walked into the building. After 20 minutes of setting up cameras, unpacking equipment, we were ready to explore. As we walked through the empty halls of the hotel, we whispered about how odd it was that such a packed hotel would be so silent in the dead of night. Nearly 45 minutes had passed and nothing was caught on our heat camera, and the EVP device wasn't going off as much as it initially did. So we decided to call it a night, since we would have more time to explore in the upcoming days. The next few days passed, and we were all growing restless over the fact that we hadn't seen anything even remotely paranormal yet. The places we picked should have had at least some kind of interesting vibes, but there was nothing. Over dinner on Wednesday night, Helena made the proposal to KO, and I readily agreed too. Babe, can we just cancel the St. Vincent's tour and go to the swamp tomorrow? It seems like all of the drunk living parties scared anything paranormal off. After she was done talking, I nodded enthusiastically, and KO breathed a sigh of relief. Thank God someone else had the same thought. We set off back to the hotel to check out and gather our stuff. After about an hour of packing, we fit everything back into our car, heading straight to the trail near the head of the swamp. Based on all of the legends, this was the part of the swamp that we would most likely see the Rougarou in, or find an alleged still standing witch's cabin. Since I was the only one who was an avid hunter, I was the only one with a gun, and I made sure to pack my .45 caliber pistol with 2 mags of ammo in case. It's common knowledge that large snakes and gators live in the swamps of Louisiana, so we had figured that we would rather have some means of defense than nothing. After walking for what seemed like hours, we finally decided to take a rest. We had just trekked through one of the roughest parts of the swamp trail, so I immediately changed my socks. I figured we could use the grime-covered ones as fire fuel later in the night if we couldn't find tinder, and I had plenty with me, so I wasn't worried. Thankfully, it was a warm night in the swamp, though, so we didn't need to start a fire at all. The fireflies surrounded us that night, and it was as if there were a million stars. It was literally the most beautiful thing any of us had ever seen. It was so relaxing that we were all dozing off in our camping chairs. That is, until we heard an eardrum-busting howl that sounded like it was right behind us. I took out my pistol and fired a warning shot, and a moment later the grass behind us parted to reveal a shaggy-looking man with long dark hair. Please don't shoot me. I wandered in here by accident. I don't even know where it is. I heard you guys talking and thought you might know how to get out. My fiancé, being the caring person she is, paid no mind to the fact that his clothing was torn and he looked unhinged. She invited him to sit with us and even gave him a granola bar. After 10 uncomfortable minutes, I finally spoke. So, why are your clothes torn up? He gave a vague response about how the swamp can beat you up, but he didn't go into detail. I once again tried to get some information from our strange visitor, though his heavy Cajun accent was hard to understand. Did you see the thing that made that horrendous howl? He shifted a little, and I could tell he was not feeling comfortable with my questions. He finally replied after thinking about his response carefully. Boy, you can call me Jack. Now that we are all friends here, there is no need to worry. I can assure you I'm not one of those beasts. In fact, that howl is what scared me into coming here. I don't know how I got here, though. I'm assuming I was drunk after last week of Mardi Gras. I looked at KO as if to give him the I don't trust him completely look. KO immediately returned the look, but we continued to chat. We gave Jack an extra sleeping bag and told him that he was welcome to sleep in one of the chairs. We said we would show him the way out in the morning, since it was too dangerous to travel in the swamp at night, which he agreed to. The next morning, we awoke to find Jack missing. I looked at Alana and shook my head. Still trust him? You and I both know he had very bad energy. She sighed and just looked down, knowing I was right. We packed up our gear, hiking further into the swamp. The next few hours went fast. The heat was blistering. We all just wanted to relax in the water, but even we knew that was not wise to swim in bayou water. A few hours later, we finally saw a broken down shack in the middle of the swamp, and we got excited. What if this is the cabin of the voodoo princess? The shack had been left untouched for a long time, since there was moss growing on everything. We made our way inside the building and immediately were weirded out. Lying on the floor was little hand-sewn doll, and it looked exactly like Jack. We decided to set up camp for the night and made sure we got well away from the shack. That night, it was a bit chillier, so we made a fire. We were telling scary stories around it when we heard a loud howl. No sooner had I put my gun in my hands, Jack came walking out of the swamp. Friends, we meet again. I'm sorry. I left so unexpectedly this morning. A big old snake chased me off, and I got lost until I saw the fire. We hesitated, but we didn't want him to get hurt, so we agreed. He smiled and thanked us again. The hours passed quickly as we ate and chatted and got sleepy. The next morning, the same thing happened. Jack had vanished, leaving us all extremely concerned. I had decided that if we saw him again tonight, I would stay awake until morning to see where he kept going. We hiked back out of the swamp, double timing to cover more ground than our previous unhurried pace. We had not seen anything out of the ordinary other than the doll and that weirdo Jack, but we still had fun. We got back to the first campsite relatively fast, though we were all exhausted by then. After setting up camp, I told KO and Elena my plan for the night in case Jack came back. KO decided he'd be staying up with me because he didn't want to risk me getting harmed. Once again, we heard the howl after sunset, and as expected, Jack came walking into the camp out of the swamp. We all exchanged a look and welcomed him back, like nothing had happened. A few hours later, Elena fell asleep, and so did KO, despite him saying he'd stay up. He finally passed out, and I pretended to while still keeping an eye on Jack. I must have dozed off at some point because when I opened my eyes, the fire was out and Jack was heading into the nearby clump of brush. I got up and followed him, trying to see where he went in the dim moonlight. Jack, where are you going? His response was not what I expected. Instead of hearing him shout back, I heard the howl again. But this time, it was behind me. As I turned around slowly, I saw it. The Rougarou. It was large, almost humanoid white wolf, with the most blood-red eyes I had ever seen. I'm ashamed to admit it, but I was terrified and I blacked out. Upon waking, I jumped up and looked around, terrified, because I was still somewhere in the swamp with that thing. Dawn was just showing, and I stumbled back to our camp. I could hear Elena and KO shouting from me, and I hurried back to them. They looked worried, sick, and were relieved to be back with me. We figured I must have had a night terror, which I was known for, and I must have sleptwalked out of camp. We made our way out of the swamp and back to our car, and after packing up quickly, we headed out of Louisiana and towards KO's house. We dropped him off and just headed back to Pennsylvania. That was our trip, and everything I just stated is 100% true. That's kind of a creepy encounter story. I'm not thinking that, well, obviously, we know that, well, we don't know, but we assume we know that humans don't transform. And because he saw Jack, or whatever the guy's name was, running off in the opposite direction of the Rougarou that he saw, I'm guessing Jack was probably just some hermit, probably lived in that shack, and well aware of the Rougarou and what other creatures live in that swamp. So, I mean, definitely a terrifying encounter. One that really kind of makes you think, because with all of the Dogman encounters I've heard and shared, for some reason, the Louisiana Dogman encounters are just a little bit different. They have that more supernatural, paranormal-esque feeling to them. You know what I'm like? I know Dogman cryptids is like a supernatural, paranormal, whatever, but it has like a strange magic feeling to them. I don't know if it's because of the generations of stories being told about the Rougarou or what, but I don't think I'd be just camping out in the woods in a swamp in Louisiana with only a .45 pistol. I think I would be out there with my 4.58 SOCOM and 9mm, my 5.56, probably everything that I own. I'd probably have just in case, and just friggin' mag dump on it.
Well, there you have it, folks. Tonight's night ending bonus. I hope you all enjoyed it as much as I enjoyed sharing it with you. I'd like to thank you all for supporting the channel. It is, after all, your support that keeps the channel growing and going. And honestly, what gives people a chance and a place to share their experiences and theories judgment free. Just simply treated with the respect that we all deserve. Thank you. Everyone stay safe, happy, healthy, and ever vigilant, keeping an eye on our children, pets, family, and friends. These creatures are real. They are out there, and they are definitely dangerous. Share this information with those you love and care about, and it may just help save their lives someday. Until next time, never stop asking questions, never stop searching for the truth, and God bless.